Hello once again, hunters. As always, this is Jizo. Unlike the other case files in my entry, today we'll focus on a creature who originates from the land of the rising sun. Yes, you guessed it, Japan. They, unlike the West, believe most of the beasts that exist in their part of the world and that they are supernatural beings, hence the reason the natives of the land refer to them as yokai. Now, yokai as it were roughly translates into three specific things. 1. A strange apparition. 2. A ghost. 3. A phantom. The thing that makes yokai in themselves a group of interesting beasts is simply due to the fact of the wide array of them you will encounter, each including a very specific and memorable way each yokai carries himself, which can range from subtle to extremely different. This in turn makes them a very dangerous bunch to encounter for civilians, let alone experienced hunters, as for some, they can be killed, warded away, or even sealed. But that is not always the case. Some of these beings date back so far in history that the means of finding a permanent solution eludes even some of the most knowledgeable scribes, including myself and others. Today's yokai falls into that very category, a spirit who is simply known as Hachishaku-sama, more commonly known as the 8-foot-tall woman. Let's start off with the yokai's appearance. Hachishaku-sama is said to stand exactly 8 feet tall, wearing a white summer-like dress, although some accounts seem to suggest it is a funeral gown. Atop her head she dons a sun hat that covers her face, which is said to be that of a pale white porcelain doll, combined with a lack of eyes, which are said to be occupied by never-ending darkness, even when it appears in bright daylight. This trait, however, is not only kept to the eyes. The yokai's hair also seems to share the same properties as his eyes. All of this matched with a terrifying smile constantly plastered across her face makes this yokai very unsettling. She appears to only show interest in children for what exact reason is unknown, but the yokai is more or less intelligent in how it chooses to go about acquiring its prey. First, as if appearing out of thin air, the surviving victims of Hachishaku-sama reported that first, more often than not, they are outside playing or even exploring an unspecified location, until looking at their surroundings, they notice something off. Most often than not, before revealing itself, the victims will notice the straw hat she wears. Shortly after this, the yokai will fully stand up, easily peering over any obstacle it was currently hiding behind, to then approach the child. Once in front of the child, she does nothing but stand there glaring back at them, and lets out its signature sound. Unfortunately, this means that child is now a target. From this point on, it does not matter what the victim, family members, or even priest attempt to do. In a few days, Hachishaku-sama will come to take that child. To where it is not known, but most likely the child will vanish forever. So far, the only way to avoid this is immediately take the victim and relocate them to anywhere that is not Japan. This is the only method that scribes and hunters have found that seems to work, as for some reason, the yokai is restricted to this specific place. There are conditions to this. If that child, even after they've grown up, enters Japan again, they will be immediately taken by the yokai. Earlier when I mentioned this creature is not to be taken lightly, it is due to the fact that it seems to be unseeable. What makes this creature so dangerous for me personally is that there's only been one record of Hachishaku-sama ever being impeded in her acts. The only time that I've seen this happen is from some old documents that I managed to dig up. In the past, some local monks of the area supposedly captured and sealed Hachishaku-sama away, specifically in an old shrine. The sealing seemed to be extremely complicated, and it involved using 4 Jizo statues placed in each of the 4 main directions. This was done to keep her from escaping. Weirdly enough, as potent as the sealing measures were, over the centuries the yokai somehow figured a way to escape, meaning that not only is it supposedly immortal, but it also is extremely intelligent enough to work around potent sealing methods. If a hunter comes across this yokai, it is advised for your best interests, do not interact at any cost. And if any children are targeted, usage of temporary wardings are a necessity, along with the aforementioned trick that immediate evacuation of the chosen victim. Well, with all of that said, that's all that I have for you today. This is going to be the end of the entry, hunters. May it serve you well, as if you ever find yourself coming across this creature. It is a unlikely situation, but I encourage you to follow the wording that I've told you in this entry. Until next time.